In this video, we will be discussing alternative options to incarceration. We will begin talking about key information that is crucial to understand before going more in depth upon our topic. We will then transition to a personal testimony of how an alternative option instead of incarceration affected this said person. We will finally conclude this video by discussing just how beneficial these programs are to our society.
Types of alternatives. Different types of alternatives to incarceration include fines, community service, probation, house arrest, rehabilitation centers, and psychiatric treatment. These are all great alternatives to incarceration. Why alternatives are needed. The U.S. prison population has more than quadrupled since the early 1980s. This has resulted in horrible living conditions, spending $70 billion annually to run prisons, and serious overcrowding. A commonly shared statistic among justice system reformers is that the U.S. has around 5% of the world's population, but about 25% of the world's prison population. To put in a more local context, if America's prison population were a city, it would be about the size of Houston, Texas. How alternatives affect people. Alternatives give offenders a second chance to work on their behavior, realize that their actions have consequences, and give them the opportunity to get the help that they need. When done right, offenders come out at the end being able to be a productive member of society and get their life back on track.
Now it's time for a story, a personal testimony. This is Jeff. Jeff was arrested for driving with a DUI. He was sent to jail for several months, but later had the alternative option to attend a halfway house. During his time at the halfway house, he decided to start a business. He opened a local coffee shop, Awake Coffee Company, located in Rock Island, Illinois. To this day, the coffee shop is doing really well, and Jeff still attends his halfway house. Now let's talk about benefits of alternative options instead of incarceration. Alternatives give hope to those who just made a mistake and really do want to fix their life. Also, alternatives decrease the amount of people going into the prison system. Also, alternative programs in prison help those with longer sentences to rebuild their life by giving options to work by day and return to the prison by night. Also, alternative sentencing is desirable because it theoretically reduces recidivism through allowing the offenders to avoid institutionalization and become a contributing member of society, while drastically reducing state corrections cost.
Recidivism is measured by criminal acts that resulted in rearrest, reconviction, or return to prison with or without a new sentence during a 3-year period following the prisoner's release. Recidivism research is embedded throughout NIJ-sponsored research in sentencing, corrections, and policy intervention evaluations. Many NIJ-funded studies of community supervision depend on recidivism measurement to inform probation and parole policy. Recidivism is an important feature when considering the core criminal justice topics of incapacitation, specific deterrence, and rehabilitation. Incapacitation refers to the effect of a sanction to stop people from committing crime by removing the offender from the community. Specific deterrence is the terminology used to denote whether a sanction stops people from committing further crime once the sanction has been imposed or completed. Rehabilitation refers to the extent to which a program is implicated in the reduction of crime by repairing the individual in some way by addressing his or her needs or deficits. An important connection exists between the concept of recidivism and the growing body of research on criminal desistance. Desistance refers to the process by which a person arrives at a permanent state of non-offending. In effect, an offender released from prison will either recidivate or desist. To the extent that interventions and sanctions affect the process of desistance, the research overlaps.
number of women in prison has been increasing at twice the rate of growth for men since 1980. Women in prison often have significant histories of physical and sexual abuse, high rates of HIV, and substance abuse problems. Women's imprisonment in female-led households leads to children who suffer from their mother's absence and breaks in families' ties. Sentencing policies, implicit racial bias, and socioeconomic inequity contribute to racial disparities at every level of the criminal justice system. Today, people of color make up 37% of the U.S. population, but 67% of the prison population. Overall, African Americans are more likely than white Americans to be arrested. Once arrested, they are more likely to be convicted, and once convicted, they are more likely to face stiff sentences. Black men are 6 times as likely to be incarcerated as white men, and Hispanic men are more than twice as likely to be incarcerated as non-Hispanic white men.
How to get involved in criminal justice reform. Take action on one of the issues below, make a donation to the Sentencing Project, or link up with local advocacy efforts near you. Join the fight to reform our criminal justice system. Make your voice heard. Help end mass incarceration by letting your representatives know that you stand for responsible criminal justice policies. Select an action item below. Donate. Support the Sentencing Project with a tax-deductible contribution and help us work for a fair and effective criminal justice system. Join local efforts. Connect with the Sentencing Project state and local partners to join criminal justice reform efforts in your area.
Imagine a loved one in your family was given the option of an alternative instead of prison for a criminal action they committed. Which would you want them to choose? Which seems like more beneficial choice to not only them, but their family and friends as well? And overall, what is actually going to help them get better?